Grace and peace be unto you from God our Father. The central affirmation of the biblical tradition that we share, I believe, is covenant. That God has made a covenant with his people, and that covenant is not just a one-on-one, one person to God, but it's a covenant among us all. I served for the past 4 decades the Queen's Federation of Churches, an ecumenical ministry. And the word ecumenical is a kind of an interesting word. If you ask someone, they might say, well, it means universal. It means it kind of includes everyone. And there's a sense in which that's the way it's used. But the word itself derives from a Greek word, oikumene, which literally means the place of habitation, where people live. And we believe that this earth, the creation of God, is that place of habitation. And it's the household of God. Now, each of us lives in our own household. And with whom do we live but members of our family? Children, parents, grandparents maybe, aunts, uncles, cousins, even some people that we've adopted, maybe through a process, maybe just somebody that's living with us for quite a while, sojourned, and adopted into the family, into the household. Those who live in a common household that share bed and board together and fellowship together are family. Those who live in God's household, likewise, are family one to the other. And so, as has been said by the speakers before in different ways, it affirms the oneness that we have as children of the one God, that we are truly to see one another, yes, as the one created in God's holy image, with the spark of the divine in each one of us, but in a more significant way as a member of a common family. That doesn't mean that within your household the family always agrees. And there might occasionally be somebody that does something a little untoward for which he'd be scolded or upbraided. But the fundamental truth is, at the end of the day, even when there has been some kind of a break in the relationship, there is no doubt that there still is a deeper relationship that unites us as family. That's the way I believe that we need to approach the world today. It can be a very dangerous thing. People of all stripes, as they've come and I mean, just rehearsing the cycle of immigration into this country over the last 2 centuries, tells us that just about every new wave that came in faced a lot of hardship and discrimination. That's not good, and I'm not suggesting that, well, that's just the way it is and therefore everyone take their turn. But rather it evidences that people live through this and come to be members and accepted members of the larger community. So will it be as well with Muslims. This morning in the New York Times, I was delighted to read an article concerning a Muslim chaplain that is at a Lutheran college in Minnesota, a new institution, and how, among other things, a woman, a student there, who had kind of lost her faith, particularly with the deaths in her family, wound up consulting this Muslim chaplain and was led back to her Christian faith. And how we can relate to one another personally, one-on-one, but it's not enough simply to do the one-on-one. My take, and it's kind of a preliminary one on this election that passed a week ago, is that there was able to be achieved a union of bigots in this country. Bigotry seemed to be the thread that ran through that campaign. And it was kind of a universal bigotry against African Americans, against immigrants, against Muslims, against Hispanics, you name it. It was there. And I believe that the only way that bigotry can take hold is in communities where people do not have experience with what they are describing as the other. Here in Queens, we're blessed, in New York City generally, the most diverse population on the face of the earth. We have within our midst nearly half the population of Queens having been born outside of the United States and living in relative peace and harmony. We're living together in a way that is perhaps unprecedented in history and certainly in our time. Now, I spend some of my summer vacations out in San Diego, and San Diego County happens to be the second most diverse county in the United States. Now, there's a difference. Queens has about 2.6 million, if I'm remembering the census figures right. San Diego County has about 3 million, a little bit larger. But the 2.6 million in Queens are put together on 110 square miles of land. Well, not exactly. Take away 20 for the two airports. The 3 million in San Diego County get to share 3,000 square miles of land. And it allows for what I think of as siloed communities. Not completely, and I'm not dumping on San Diego, it's a great city. But if we live to ourselves only, and that I think is certainly one of the things that happens particularly with new immigrant groups. You know, we want to be with people that we know that speak the language, and that's understandable. But that self-siloing is what gives rise to the opportunity for the people outside of the silo to say, what are they doing there that they don't want us to know? And that's the root and the seed for bigotry to grow. What I would encourage you to do as Muslims, and encourage us to do as Christians, as Jews, and with all the other faiths, is not just to embrace one another, not just to have episodic events like this, but to make yourselves known within your local community. Knock on the door of the nearby synagogue or church and introduce yourself. You can have theological dialogue if you want, but I suspect that one of the problems with that in the first instance is that we immediately want to parse what makes us different from the other. Work together on common projects. Get to be known. And in that knowledge, fear will dissipate. Jim Wallace, a rather well-known preacher, in the days following the invasion of Iraq in 2003, gave a sermon that I remember poignantly, and the central element of it was that he asserted, and I didn't check him out on this, but I'll take him at his word, that the most common statement attributed to Jesus in the Gospels is one form or another of, fear not, do not be afraid. Certainly that's a message that we needed to hear then in '03. But it's a message I think that we need to hear now on many levels, is that in our fear, we paralyze ourselves, and we don't enable God to work through us to build the relationships that are at the heart of covenant. That's what we are aiming to do by interfaith dialogue and relationship, and it is an important task that we have, not just for one community, but it's a task that we share mutually, and all of us need to learn to become better at that task. The French theologian Pierre Teilhard de get my tongue straight. Teilhard de Chardin, I'll get it. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, that's it, once said, I think quite appropriately, the way we treat each other is the way we treat God. Think about that. As we build common cause for social action, for justice, the way we treat one another is indeed the respect and the way we treat God. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to further opportunities to share with you all.